Chemical City Double Reeds is a full-service double reed shop specializing in the sale of instruments, cane, accessories, and sheet music. Double Reed Dish listeners can enjoy free shipping with code DRDISH, all caps, no spaces. Visit them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or online at chemicalcityreeds.com.
Hey, oboists! Have you ever found it difficult to sort out when and how to find a new oboe or English horn? Oboe Chicago streamlines the process, providing personal and professional consultation and a large selection of lovely instruments. The process feels comfortable and thorough. Selection includes F. Fleuret of Paris, Howarth of London, Covey oboes, and Fox products. For a current listing of Oboe Chicago's selection, please visit www.oboechicago.com. For a credit of $100 toward shipping, mention Double Reed Dish when you call or email Shauna.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
a podcast for oboists,
bassoonists,
and the people who love them.
I'm so happy. Georgia's in here with me, and she just fell asleep. She was making a commotion chewing on two nylobones at the same time.
Well, I'm jealous of Georgia. It is dark. It's literally pitch black as I look out my window. We are recording this at 6 a.m.
So sorry. It was my fault, y'all.
Well, it's that mid-semester insanity that just you literally showed me your calendar. You're going full tilt. Tomorrow, Thursday, I literally, I've been getting to work before 7 a.m. so I can get in my practice time because otherwise I just don't get it in. And then I will start teaching from 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. And then at 7:30, there's a concert. And so I will literally work for 14 hours straight tomorrow. And not every day is like that, certainly, but
at this point of the semester, from here to the end is
how much can we cram in?
Yeah, and every semester I say to myself, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take a manageable load of things to take on. But then things pop up here and there and you're like, yeah, of course I'm going to do that. That sounds awesome. And so then you're like, yeah, definitely. And then there's 6 of those.
Or you know what I find, and I say this every semester, I'm sure I've said it on the podcast before, at least for me, I find there is enough time for me to practice as much as I need to be ready for my performances. Or there is enough time for me to take care of all my work tasks, computer time.
Yep.
But I cannot have both.
That's right.
I have to choose between those two. So if I'm yeah, today was a great practice day, I'm probably overwhelmed looking at my to-do list. Or if I got a bunch of things off my to-do list, I'm probably neglecting my instrument and my reed case is in shambles.
I don't know about you, but my mindset is really important in my practice session. If I'm thinking about the things on my to-do list, my practice session is garbage.
I'm kind of the opposite. I've been trying, especially this academic year, to practice, to prioritize practice over tasks. Because historically, I've loved that dopamine hit of it's off the list, it's off the list, it's off the list.
Well, it's so seductive. You're oh, look, I am so good at my job.
Well, but then it would make me I don't know, kind of resentful. The whole point of this is to be a bassoon artist and teacher. So I've been, like I said, getting to work early, which I'm not trying to I'm sacrificing so much. I am an early bird. I like doing that. I like being at the building when it's quiet and no one's there. That is a nice thing for me. But I've been, starting the day with 2 hours of practice, and then I can I feel like I've paid that bill. Mm-hmm. And then however the rest of the day goes is fine. But if tasks keep me from the bassoon, then I'm like, and get like an attitude about it. So that has been helpful starting the day with practice because I'm like, well, even if the day gets, out of my hands or things come up, I started with 2 hours. That's
Yeah,
pretty good.
that's fantastic. I originally made my schedule so that I don't go in to my office at USM until after lunch. So that I have 4 hours in the morning to do my read making and my practicing. And, when we came back from tour, I really had to cannibalize that time to make up lessons because
Mm,
I was already making up lessons on the weekends. And there's only
mhm.
so many hours that you have available to make
Yep.
up lessons on top of the lessons you're already teaching. So I have been missing that time so much.
Yeah.
It's really, I really need it. Like I need a long chunk. Like
Hmm.
I can make do with like a 30-minute chunk here and a 20-minute chunk there, but my brain loves a 4 hour block
Yeah.
where I can just sink in and not worry, like not have like a quarter of my mind thinking about what's waiting outside my door in 5 minutes.
1,000% get that. And so I actually have combated that by making a sign for my office door. You've seen it. It is, I put it in one of those clear plastic sheets so that it doesn't get beat up or anything. And it's a giant stop sign. And it literally
Wow.
says, stop.
It's in color. It's a
It's in
red
color. I
stop
printed it
sign.
in color. It's red. And then underneath it says, right now I'm trying to practice and or focus. So please do not knock. And then it puts my email and my office hours. And if I am practicing, that is on my door. And I don't care.
Well, okay, that is a beautiful, beautiful boundary, and I am so supportive of it, and it makes me laugh, and I love it so much. For me, that would not work because my students are so sweet that they would sit outside in the hallway if I got lost in time and like didn't open my door at their lesson time, they would sit there for the full hour.
Well, yeah, you got to take it down when it's time to do stuff.
That's what I mean. Like I need
You
to
need to
not
get
be there.
lost in
Yeah, I need to
Oberland.
get lost. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, speaking of tour, one cool thing that has kind of that we did while you were on tour that we kind of kept under wraps that now is like out is we did some updated headshots. We did some updated branding. If y'all have not checked it out, you got to get on our social media and actually our new website.
Our new website is so fantastic. I love it.
Who
It has
created that?
I don't know, just some random name. Jackie Wilson.
Oh, that was me. It was me. But you know what? Our iTunes icon has not updated, and I thought I
Ever.
did that correctly. And so,
Well, it still has the original logo I think that Becky made.
no, it
Oh,
has
it has
the other one, but I'm gonna have to figure that out. So if you listen on iTunes, you have to go
sorry.
somewhere else right now to find to see the new one.
Okay, so this branding update has kind of a funny story because our week in Pullman was fast and furious.
Well,
And
first, ever since
okay,
you grew your hair out, you have been
true.
wanting the logo to reflect what you look like. And I've
Right.
been like, girl, I have to update every single thing on every single platform. And it was like a year and a half that I was like,
Ah,
give me 3 months. Give me 3 months, please. Just give me
what
some
would
time.
happen? What would happen if I cut my hair off again right now?
It it's not happening. Or actually, we could go back to the old one. Yeah. I if you dye your hair pink, you can, get in Microsoft Paint and you can just paint your head pink. It's actually not that much work, but Yeah, I kept kicking the can because I was like, please, no. But yes, okay. So then we finally were together. We wanted updated headshots and all that.
Right. So we were like scheduled to the max that week.
Mhm.
And we were like, okay, well, we wanted to take new pictures together because those ones that we had, I had short hair and they were 6 years old, almost 7 years old now.
Yes, but it was cute that we matched and we're in the same location.
Mm.
And yeah,
We
as a
were like,
brand, it was nice to have them together and even individually in the
we
same
were like,
place.
this is our only chance. But we didn't even have enough time to like book a photographer. So we did what we always do, which is go, Chris, can you help us with something?
Well,
So
and we really wanted to do it in Pullman because Pullman has these fabulous murals, and including this rainbow wall that you really wanted to have
yeah,
a headshot in front
every time we
of.
drove by it, I was like, I want to take a picture by that.
Because we talked about getting them done in Kansas City or something like that. And yeah, so basically we were just like, Chris, you have a nice camera, you do some photography, emphasis on the faux. Um, which you just
Photography.
follow us around downtown Pullman and let us have a like America's Next Top Model moment. And he was like, yes. Because the poor guy, he produced the whole album for us. So he was busy every second we were busy, but he
Well,
wasn't like,
right.
I'm recording an album. This is going to be great for my CV. It was just purely selflessness. And then we were like, how about one more thing?
And I manhandled him into making a steak.
Yes, he cooked for us several nights.
I made him refill my gin and soda at least once.
He's the best.
He's the best. So then it is what, 7 a.m.?
Yes, we went out there very
Because
early.
you had an 8 a.m. We were like, okay,
Class. Yep.
we have to do this. There is 1 hour block at 7 a.m. in which we can do this. And poor Chris was in the middle of marching season. So he was like getting home at like 9 p.m. every night and then tromping out with us at 7 in the morning. And he took a bunch of pictures and they turned out phenomenal.
They turned out really well.
Yeah.
I was
Like
like, and it's just with our, like, we have a nice camera, but actually the setting on the iPhone ended up being like the easiest. And
portrait mode. Yeah.
yes, it was just, it's really high quality. And we were like, okay, we'll take this free headshot photo shoot situation.
We should not brag on Chris too much on the podcast because people are going to start flying him out to do everything.
Yeah, this is not a like sister wives situation. Sorry, he's
It's
taken.
not. No,
But
it turned out really good. I actually sent a couple shots to my friend Kat, who is a legitimate photographer, and I was like, "Would you do anything to these?" She's like, "I mean, I'd crop it."
yeah,
And I was like, "Cool."
we're good to go. And when you're on our social media to check out our new branding, because we are businesswomen, the ultimate business CEO people. You may also see that we are having our annual Halloween read decorating contest. Galit, talk to the people about the prizes. And entries are due 10:15. So if you're listening to this episode as soon as it comes out on 10:15, you've got until midnight to get your entry in. So quick, quick, quick. But yeah, tell them what we're giving away.
Okay, so we have 4 prizes to give out. We have the popular vote winners for oboe and bassoon. So that's 2. And then we have podcast choice winners for oboe and bassoon. Because a lot of the times, Jackie and I wish that we could, like, after the popular vote count is counted, were like, oh, but this other one was so good.
Oh, but
So
I love this one, and we want to be control freaks,
yeah.
basically.
So, our amazing sponsors, Chemical City Reads and Barton Kane, are offering a $50 gift card for each of the four prizes. So that's Chemical City Reads and Barton Kane. $50 gift card for four prizes, and Barton Kane is throwing in a free t-shirt. So get to getting, because the getting is good.
So if you win, that's $100 in podcast or in double read merchandise. And you can wear a Barton Kane shirt while you're ordering all your cool double read supplies. Just enough time to order a bunch of Kane for finals week.
Listen, I don't know what I would do without either of those companies. They have saved my butt so many times just on an individual level that
Absolutely.
yeah, this is so exciting and we love partnering with them so much. So, get creative, get those juices flowing. The reads do not have to work. The point
No.
is to be scared.
Yeah, I had someone write and ask, like, okay, can it be an English horn read? Yes, anything. It can be Kane, it just has to be a read.
It has to
Or
be a
something
read.
that was once a read and is now back from the dead. Woo!
Consider buying your processed oboe and bassoon cane from those friendly folks over at Barton Cane. Processed with care and precision for your everyday reed-making needs. Take the pain and injury out of reed-making by letting Barton Cane do the hard, repetitive, boring stuff. Free up time for practicing, happy hours, hikes, baking, and spending time with friends and family. Barton Cane, here for you. Visit www.bartoncane.com.
Ugly Duckling Oboes is dedicated to the development of young oboe players. They provide quality handmade oboe reeds, private lessons, and high-quality oboe sales, rentals, and consignments. The oboes that they rent are conservatory mechanism oboes that include the left-hand F key and low B flat key. All are maintained by oboe-specific technicians. In-person lessons are available, as well as virtual lessons for students who live outside the geographic area or have transportation and scheduling challenges. They also offer online college audition coaching for high school juniors and seniors who plan to audition to be music majors. Visit uglyducklingoboes.com for more details on how you can set up yourself for success and sign up for their newsletter. That's uglyducklingoboes.com. We are delighted to welcome to Double Reed Dish Melanie Rothman, oboist in the Bavarian Radio Symphony Orchestra. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you.
We would love to hear how your journey to the oboe started. How did you come to this instrument?
So when I was about 9 years old at school, the teachers had reported to my parents that I'd been misbehaving because basically I was finishing my work in class quite quickly and getting bored. So they moved me into another school, which was supposedly meant to be a bit more challenging, which it was actually, where there were a lot more subjects on offer than you would have in just sort of normal state school in the UK. So that meant that there were music lessons, which was something that wasn't accessible to me before. And I arrived at the school and I really didn't know anything about music. And almost all the girls played an instrument or sang or had some kind of music lessons. And I was the only one who didn't really do that, more or less. And I couldn't read music. I didn't know what a clarinet was or a cello was. So I was really, arriving to this place with no idea. And on a Thursday lunchtime, there was an orchestral rehearsal. And obviously I ended up more or less alone outside in the playground, being one of the only people who didn't play anything. So my 9-year-old self used to go and listen to the orchestral rehearsal, which must have been quite something, listening to an orchestra of girls under the age of 12. I'm actually quite curious to see what that would have sounded like now. So I went along to the rehearsals and kind of thought, well, if I want to have my Thursday lunchtime with other people and also understand what happens in music lessons. Maybe I should play an instrument and that'd be a way to kind of catch up with everyone else. So I had a look around the orchestra and thought, yeah, I don't want to play a violin. I don't want to do what everyone else is doing. And I noticed there was one girl who played the French horn and one girl who played the oboe. And I knew that the girl playing the oboe was going to be leaving the school in a few months. So that was how I chose the oboe. So I really had no idea, to be honest, about what it entailed, how it sounded. All I knew was it was a wind instrument and it was a bit different to the clarinet. That's basically all I knew. And then I was walking along one day with a friend of mine who'd dented her flute and had to go and see her teacher. And we had a chat and I said, yeah, I'm thinking about playing an instrument as well, maybe the oboe. And she said, oh yeah, I think it would really suit you. So then I went home and asked my dad, can you please write a letter into the school to ask if I could have oboe lessons, please? And he was like, where the hell has this come from? And he thought it was just going to be a phase, because I was one of those kids that kind of, went from one thing to another. Never really stuck with anything for too long. Again, this thing of getting bored quickly. But luckily with the oboe, I didn't get bored quickly at all. And actually within a few months, I more or less knew that's what I wanted to do. And yeah, so that's how I ended up starting the oboe. I promised that when I did have my first couple of lessons, I then was a little bit more aware about what it sounds like.
I relate to that so much because, there's just something about the level of difficulty and the elusiveness of mastering the oboe that manages to keep our attention. It's just slippery enough to get away from you if you don't pay attention to it for 5 minutes. So yeah, that seems like a really powerful motivator.
Definitely. And I remember also hearing at the time, teachers around me saying, oh yeah, the oboe you've chosen, oh, that's difficult. And lots of people give that up within a year. And I thought, I'm not going to be that person. I'm not going to be a giver upper. So I stuck at that and I worked really hard at it. And actually it was good for me to have, a thing where I didn't just move on straight away to something else, where I really stuck at it and worked hard and enjoyed it as well, obviously. Otherwise I wouldn't have carried on if I hadn't enjoyed it. And obviously there's that element that, I'm good at this, so I enjoy it, and I enjoy it because I'm good at it, It's part of that as well. Yeah. Especially when you're that age. I think that's quite important, that you feel that you're good at it as well. Yeah.
Can you talk us through more of your educational training and then your professional journey of how you got to where you are today?
So I started off with a teacher called Hilary Dennis, who was teaching at the school I attended in South London. And around that time, I started doing sort of national children's orchestra and things like that. And I ended up going to the National Youth Orchestra of Great Britain, which was an amazing training ground. It's basically one of these orchestras where they pick young musicians from across the country. And we were a big section in the oboes, we were a section of 8 people. There were also 8 flutes, 8 clarinets, 10 horns. I mean, a really massive size orchestra, but an amazing force. And we had 3 courses a year. And I did that for 3 years. And they really treated us like young professionals. And they had top conductors coming in, top professionals. So that was really a sort of a time in which I thought, this is what I want to do. Orchestra stuff, that's really cool and really enjoyable, and the sort of collective feeling of preparing something with a whole group of friends. So at that point I then started to apply for music colleges, and I attended the Royal Academy of Music in London for a short time, and then kind of decided that I wanted something a little bit different. So I left to France and I studied with Nora Sismondi for a year. She was then the principal oboe of the Orchestre National de France, but now she's at the Suisse Romande in Geneva. So I was with her for a year. And then I did my bachelor with David Walter at the Conservatoire Supérieur, so the famous Paris Conservatoire, let's say, CNSM. And after I did my bachelor with David, I did an Erasmus exchange and then my master's with Stefan Schilly
Mhm.
at the Mozarteum University in Salzburg.
He's one of my favorite oboists.
Yeah, mine too.
Hmm.
One of mine too. Yeah.
Hmm.
And he's also an amazing teacher
Hmm.
and fantastic human being. And after that, I did 1 year of a new music academy called the Ensemble Moderne Academy, which is linked with the Ensemble Moderne, which is one of the specialist new music ensembles. And then finally, I did a postgraduate in Stuttgart with Christian Schmidt. So lots of studies, lots of moving around, lots of different teachers, but all of them were extremely valuable in different ways.
Um, when I look back at my educational journey, I often have these like crystal clear aha moments of,
Mhm.
oh, this is what they were talking about, or um, kind of like a moment of enlightenment, like, oh, I got it now. Can you share with us any of those aha moments from your really superior education?
I think one of those aha moments was I remember when I was studying in Paris with David, him kind of reiterating quite often that I should just be myself.
Mm.
Which at the time I didn't really understand what he meant by that. Um, and much further down the line, in terms of trying to find an orchestral job and doing auditions, I've started to see how important that is. That I'm really true to myself and I don't pretend stylistically or otherwise to be someone else or to fit into a certain box because I think that's the thing I should do. So I would say that was an aha thing that came much later.
That sounds
Definitely from
extremely
David.
empowering.
Yeah, David was pretty incredible in that sense. Like he had an enormous respect for each of his students, and has quite a unique teaching style. So, there was a lot of lessons where we would like literally play through a whole piece and then talk about it at the end. So, an approach that's quite unique, really. But for me at that time, it was really good for me. So, yeah.
Mm.
Could you maybe talk a little bit more about how you cultivated that individuality? I'm not trying to be controversial, but I think that
Mhm.
is something that I hear a lot in European playing is an emphasis on a soloistic quality and a unique voice. And worldwide, those are the players that we tend to venerate and that when I'm listening excite me the most. But in the United States, it can be homogeneity can really be a priority. And so,
Mhm.
that's something that like individually I place a lot of value in, like that I admire these European players so much. And I would be really interested in how one intentionally cultivates that or what you felt pedagogically empowered you to do that kind of more the detailed process of how you develop that skill.
Right. I mean, if I speak for myself personally, I would say that having studied in the UK and then France and then Austria and Germany, just having those four different countries, teachers who came from basically three different nationalities, that already in itself meant that I had to, in a way, kind of pick and choose what I wanted for myself and stylistically.
Hmm.
I think some people might find that really confusing, and maybe when I was much younger, when I first started studying, it was kind of confusing. But I was also really driven by the French style of oboe playing at that time,
Hmm.
and so I think just sort of naturally, if you like, over the years that I studied, I kind of took on things that I wanted from each of those individual styles.
Hmm.
And that kind of made me who I am now. And in terms of otherwise individual approach
Hmm.
to my playing, it's quite tricky to answer, but I'd say just having conviction in what I want to do with my phrases, conviction in how I want my sound to be and how I like it to be and what feels good.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's what I would say about that, really. I think if you've had as many oboe lessons as I've had, and experienced as many teachers as I've had, that's sort of something that kind of naturally comes over time.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't say that any of it was like a conscious decision, so to
Right.
speak.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. So you walked us through your educational journey. Let's keep going through the timeline. What came next?
So when I was doing my postgraduate in Stuttgart with Christian Schmidt, I was taking a lot of orchestral auditions, but also freelancing a bit. So that's kind of where things started to heat up with orchestra work. So I worked with some ensembles like Bergen Philharmonic in Norway and the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra in the UK, sort of on a freelance basis.
Hmm.
And then I won a job as solo oboe with the Hessen State Theatre Orchestra, which is in Wiesbaden in Germany. And Wiesbaden is the capital city of Hessen State. Not many people outside of Germany know Wiesbaden, but it's a fairly major city near to Frankfurt and to Mainz. It's an old Spar town. So I worked there for about a year and a half in the theatre orchestra, so mostly opera things, dotted with some symphonic concerts in the year. And then I worked for a few months with the Duisburger Philharmoniker, which is slightly further north in Germany. That's a very industrial part of Germany. So very, very different kind of city, different kind of people and mentality. I had a really great time there. I was only there for 4 months on a contract, but that was a sort of similar situation with it being mostly opera and some symphony orchestra stuff. And during that time, I continued to do auditions as well for more long-term contracts. So I was very lucky in that in May of this year, I won what's now my current position in BR in a Bayerische Rundfunk Symphony Orchestra. Yeah.
So,
That's so incredible. Can you tell us about that audition? How did that day go?
Um, you know what? This may sound sort of silly, but I actually had fun at the audition, which is kind of crazy to think about because auditions are horrible. Nobody likes them. I certainly don't. I, yeah, I mean, I've done so many that haven't gone well, or those that have gone well, but it didn't work out. And that's another feeling entirely, as negative feeling entirely. But actually, when I went to that audition, I made a priority for myself, which was whatever happens in terms of the position, whether it gets given out or not, whether I pass the first round, second round or not, doesn't matter as long as I play well enough that I'm satisfied with myself and that I make Stefan Schilly proud as my previous professor.
Oh.
So I think that actually really helped me to play well because otherwise it could have easily been I mean, it is a high pressure situation, an audition, especially in front of an orchestra of that kind of caliber. And also an orchestra where I know quite a few people. So that is a very high pressure situation. But having that one focus, that was the thing that really helped me. And I was also just lucky with the conditions on the day. I got there really early, earlier than I was technically allowed to be there. But I just thought, it's not going to hurt anyone if I stand outside for half an hour, better just to be there really, really early and be ready. And we were given the numbers of who was going when on arrival, and I got given number one. And a lot of people don't like number one, but I love number one because it means I don't have to wait around.
That's right.
yeah.
Because with the waiting around, I get more and more nervous. I hear more and more people around me, and hearing how good everybody sounds does put me off at an audition. I'll be honest. I find it hard to stay confident. So having number one was fantastic. So I just went straight in. Good morning. Here we go. Let's do it. And the first round, I had to play quite a lot of repertoire. We all did. Quite full on, but also really nice to feel like, okay, I've got time to play and to show things, and also maybe calm down if I feel nervous or something. So so that went nicely. I just felt like there was a really great energy in the room. You know, when you have that feeling sometimes at a concert or an audition where you have the impression that the people who are sitting there just want you to do well and just want it to be a nice day for them too. That's the feeling I had. Final round, I was the only one in the final round. They requested the Beethoven Trio together with a couple of colleagues.
That's fun.
Yeah, it was so fun. And honestly, I was standing on the stage playing with them, and I was just thinking, wow, this is amazing with these guys. It feels so easy. I want to do this every day. And I just felt comfortable, which is not what you imagine in the final of an audition. You just imagine it as this super scary moment where you're still under so much stress and tension. And honestly, the tension was just all gone by that point. It was really, really unusually comfortable. So the audition day was just the best experience ever, because then obviously after that I got told that I got the job. So it was really just the best day. Yeah.
Okay, I know I have COVID, but I'm going to start crying.
Well, that's really interesting. It kind of reminds me what we were talking about with cultivating that individual voice, because you would never see 3 solos and chamber music on a list here. And so it really seems like you're set up to succeed for having cultivated that individual voice. Like that's part of what they are auditioning you for. It's not just like, okay, stand and deliver, execute this thing. It's like, okay, we care to know your musical voice and your how you interpret something and you as a soloist. Do you feel like that cultivating, as we spoke about before, that kind of autonomous musical voice helped you to be successful in orchestral auditions?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, especially in an orchestra like that has a very specific vision for what they want to achieve. I think that did, yes, help me for my audition there, certainly. In the rest of Germany, I think it just depends on the orchestra, really. The thing though that I've come to see here is that German orchestras really like to feel like they have their identity and their personality and their sound.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there have also been auditions where I played well and they thought I played well and liked me, but my sound was just sort of not really fitting into their group.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's also another thing not to forget after auditions, actually, is maybe it wasn't that I played badly. Maybe it was just that I didn't fit into their ideal. So, yeah, so that's been a really interesting thing for me. But I think it definitely helped in Munich. Yeah.
Speaking of auditions, you were last year's grand prize winner of the 2021 Gilles Fox competition. Can you talk to us about that experience?
Yeah. So, first of all, that was a super fun experience. The repertoire was quite insane, as to be expected with the Gilles Fox competition, but I mean, really, really amazing stuff to get your teeth into. The McAllister Grunge Concerto in particular was super fun to learn. It was one of those pieces I also, you know, when I bought the music, I had to look at it and I thought, my goodness me, how the hell am I going to play this? Was one of those. But that satisfaction of, yeah, I've worked hard on this and it's working and I'm managing to do this. That was a really amazing feeling. So everything happened online because the conference couldn't happen in person because of COVID stuff. So that was probably, I'd say, the thing that was the most difficult for me. So obviously the repertoire was tricky, all the usual stuff, preparation things, but finding a good enough venue whilst COVID was happening, finding a pianist who had time for me, to rehearse all this very difficult repertoire that was tricky to put together. And then having a good enough camera setup, recording equipment, all of that stuff was really tricky. Because also that stuff costs money too. So there was a lot of support from the IDRS, which was brilliant. But just having to do all those things, those organizational things, was just an extra stress that you wouldn't have if you flew to a conference and played there. That would all be kind of done for you. So that was the thing that was really a big challenge for me. And then playing in front of the camera, recording the concert more or less, because I had to do it in one take. And having the feeling, I'm performing at this big competition and this is the final, and having that excitement. I mean, it's not quite the same when you've got just a camera on a stick in front of you compared to, a lovely smiling audience. So that was the biggest challenge for me, was getting over that feeling of, I don't like playing in front of a camera, or I'd prefer to have an audience in front of me. So what I tried to do was actually get a couple of people in the room. So I managed to get a couple of friends and colleagues to sit in the room behind the camera, just so I had more of a feeling of, yes, I'm performing today, and not, I'm just playing to the camera. And that was a really, really formative experience for me. Really was, because I felt like I was facing these challenges head on. I feel nervous about playing to the camera. I feel nervous that my personality won't come across well enough, or that I'll get so focused on my technique because there isn't an audience in front of me for who I want to play music to. So that was really a big challenge, but a really good one to have done, for sure. And finding out that I won the competition online was also quite weird. I was sitting in a car at the time on the way to pick up some pizza or something. I mean, it was like the weirdest way to find out you've won a big competition, but kind of funny in a way too. But I mean, the nice thing is that I could go to the IDRS this summer, so a year later, and meet people and have the feeling of the conference and the excitement there, and also seeing the Gilet Fox or the bassoons this year, and experiencing that on the other side was really, really nice. So I'm kind of glad I managed to catch up with some of that a bit later.
You've been successful and active in other competitions as well, and so I wonder if we could hear a bit about what you learn or gain from competitions. Like if someone is, I know we've heard countless stories of people going, oh, well, I bought the pieces and then I just decided not to. I backed away from the edge. And so if someone's kind of waffling and deciding, should I go for it and do a competition? Maybe what you feel you've gained, or what competitions have to offer to a young musician.
Well, the thing that I'd say competitions are really fantastic for is, preparing a lot of repertoire that you might not otherwise play. So discovering pieces, first of all. Secondly, for building up stamina, it's absolutely amazing, because you usually don't play so many challenging pieces in succession like that. And also just, having this weeks or months of preparation where it's like, okay, I've got these pieces to do and I want to play it to the absolute best of my ability and make it the most musically convincing I can. There are rarely other opportunities where it's as intense as that is. So after you've had, a few months of preparing for a competition, maybe performing at the competition, maybe getting to a final or semi-final, the feeling of satisfaction firstly is really quite something, and the second thing is your technique will absolutely go forward. There's no way that it would go backwards. There's just no way. Because it's this incredible intense workout that you've been doing for ages. I mean, it's every time I've done a competition, I've really felt the difference afterwards. Yeah.
Could we hear a little bit about like your practice routine, or what that intense period of time looks like tangibly?
So, especially for competition preparation, I would kind of write out a plan, because there's so much repertoire to cover. I would write like a 2 to 3 week plan of, okay, Monday the 1st, I'm going to do the first page of the first movement of X sonata, and I'm going to do the first page of the second movement of X concerto, and just kind of organize it in that way so that I don't feel overwhelmed. Because, you know, you could look at a list for a competition and think, oh no, there's far too much repertoire. There's no way I can get through that. Of course you can get through it. It's just a question of organization in a way that feels bite-sized and doable. The same also for memorizing something. If you have to memorize the Schumann romances or the Strauss concerto or whatever it is, same thing. I do exactly the same thing. I wrote myself out a little schedule for about, say 3 weeks period, and then do my best to stick that as much as I can. And also being mindful of not setting myself too much per day, because I have done that too in the past. I've set myself too much per day. So that's one thing I do. And then once I feel like I've more or less gotten the pieces under my fingers, but not really at a performance level, I actually push myself to play it to people anyway. I start playing to friends and trusted people, running through stuff, even when I feel uncomfortable with it. Some people would disagree with me with that method, but for me, it's like ironing out all the creases as soon as possible. So as soon as you start performing to people, you see, aha, okay, actually this section is not as bad as I thought it would be, and this section definitely needs a lot more work. So it's really interesting to start running through whilst you're still kind of learning things and getting them ready, rather than just leaving it till right at the end, because you have better scope over, okay, what really, really needs to have priority and which doesn't. So I do that. And then nearer to the deadlines of the competitions or the dates, I will then start running through in a more sort of concert format, slightly more formally, including walking into the room, all that sort of thing. So that's how I would prepare a competition specifically with my practice. In terms of general practice, I don't do anything out of the ordinary. I start with scales and things, vocalises, stuff like that. And I love the Sellner etudes, which are sort of
I love those.
very basic, but really great for articulation, waking up the fingers. I do those almost every day. Sometimes I might rotate it with some other studies or things, or I might pick out a section of a sonata that's particularly challenging for the fingers and just play it through slowly with a metronome. Or sometimes I just pick a random Bach cantata and practice it. So I like to kind of keep things on my toes a little bit as well, but I wouldn't say I do anything particularly unusual with my practice routines.
Do you address in your preparation the mental side? You're obviously a fierce competitor. What do you do to, strengthen your mind? Do you do anything specific, or is that just all tied into your organization beforehand?
Well, I would say that mental practice plays a big, big role for me. I do it a lot. I really do it a lot. I really like to sit down with my scores before I go to bed, even if it's just listening through with the recording I love, or even listening through without the score. And then there's also a thing that somebody taught me once, which I think is really awesome, is where you sit down calmly in a chair, close your eyes, and you imagine yourself performing the whole concert or competition repertoire in one sitting. So you sit there and you think through the whole thing, and you do it in a way where everything goes exactly how you want it to go. So you're sort of training your brain in advance. Okay, it's going to go this way. I'm going to walk on stage in this way, and I'm going to feel this way. And my first note's going to sound like this. And you basically walk through the whole thing from A to Z in your head, exactly how you want it. So that's a really, really good tool for being a fierce competitor, as you put it. But which is really funny to me, because I I wouldn't describe myself as a competitive person. I mean, I went into competitions for the challenge and because they're uncomfortable and because I don't like them. That's actually, it's true. That's why I did it, because I thought I need an extra push. I need a goal. I need something that is gonna make me a better oboist. So, yeah.
I love it.
Can we hear about a favorite memory that you have of a past performance?
Yeah, so there's one that always sticks in my mind, and it was actually back in youth orchestra days, with the National Youth Orchestra Great Britain. It was my first ever concert with them, so I was about 16, and it was Britain War Requiem, conducted by the late Sir Richard Hickox in St Paul's Cathedral in London. I mean, it was just insane. I mean, this amazing, grandiose piece, with 2 orchestras and a million soloists. I mean, it's really, really something. Amazing piece, just so much sound. And then in a place like that as well, of such historical importance. That was a highly, highly emotional concert. Really, really incredible experience. And I think that was probably, one of the concerts for me that confirmed, yes, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do with my life. So that's the one that really sticks out for me. Yeah.
That was very, very beautiful. Now, I wonder if you could maybe regale us with a story of something perhaps funny or embarrassing that has ever happened to you in a concert or on a stage. Please help us feel better about ourselves.
Okay, well, I don't think this is a funny story, but it's a pretty amazing story that I like to think about sometimes. And it's, again, with the National Youth Orchestra, so a lot of stuff happened then. We were playing a concert maybe in Birmingham or Manchester or somewhere, in a major concert hall somewhere. And at the end of the program, we had Revel La Valse. And there are these little first oboe solos near the beginning. These little solos. And I was sitting third oboe cor anglais in that concert. And the poor girl who was playing first oboe, her oboe just like seized up while she was playing the first little solo. And we still don't know till this day what happened, but she panicked because obviously her oboe just stopped working. And then the guy who was sitting on second oboe, it was incredible. Within like 3 seconds or less, he reacted and started playing for her, instead of her, because she'd stopped. And he was so nervous at having done that he froze as well. And the girl, the other side of me, because I said before, the National Youth Orchestra is huge. We have like 8 oboes. The girl on the other side of me, who had, first and second oboe parts, she then started playing. So, I mean, it was this incredible, like sort of wave within the oboe section of one thing going wrong, and then the next person stepping in. It was absolutely amazing to see how quickly people can react in a sort of emergency situation like that. And I was sort of sitting in the middle of these 2 people, like, what the hell just happened? And then, sort of tutti passengers were coming back. And so I passed my oboe down to first oboist and said, take my oboe for the rest of the performance. And she gave me hers, and I had a quick look at it. No idea what the hell was happening there. I mean, it was just like from nothing, completely jammed. And I thought, you know what? This is the last piece of the concert. She's playing on my oboe. She's got more important stuff to do. I'm just sitting here on third oboe playing in the loud tutti bits. So, it's okay. Yeah, so that was, yeah, not really funny, but a really, really weird moment, but kind of amazing. And the next day we had a concert in another concert hall, and Paul Daniel was the conductor for that course, and he said at the general rehearsal for the next concert, "Bravo oboes for last night," and everyone around us looked at us like, what's he talking about? Like, what happened? Nobody noticed. Yeah, nobody noticed.
Miraculous.
So that makes me think, if there's like a crazy thing like that happens and nobody noticed, not even the people around you, the small little mistakes you make in a concert, is anybody really noticing? Probably not.
Yes, I agree.
So, passing oboes around and all this stuff that nobody even knew. Yeah. So
everyone's like shivering and shaking in the corner.
I mean, there was definitely some shivering and shaking going on, but successfully got to the end of La Valse.
This also explains why we are the way we are, because things can just stop working at any moment for no reason.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, there's this whole element of we're kind of actors in a way. You kind of have to pretend that everything's fine, even if it feels like it isn't.
Right.
The funny thing about that is that I recently had to play La Valse again, and it was the first time since that event. So about 15 years later. And I was playing first oboe, and obviously my head was just spinning. It was saying, your oboe is going to seize up now. So, yeah, next time La Valse comes around, I'll be really positive about it. I'll say whatever happens.
God. That's so funny.
Get to the end.
Your mind is like, what's the worst that could possibly happen? Oh, that thing that happened last time? That's the worst.
Yeah, that's the worst.
I mean, luckily it didn't happen to me in my oboe, but goodness me. I mean, it's good to know that, friends or colleagues around you can just step in. I mean, you probably know that amazing video from London Symphony Orchestra, Olivier, and I love that it's the descent into hell is the part of the Berlioz work. It's called the descent into hell. Yeah, it definitely was. But amazing. I mean, it's so incredible how fast Rosie passes him an oboe and he just plays it like nothing happened. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, I obviously don't wish for stuff to go wrong in orchestral concerts because it's super stressful, but sometimes you kind of do just to see what will happen.
Right.
Yeah. It'll make a good story later to tell in a podcast.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
What advice do you have for a young musician who aspires to have a career like yours?
I'd say follow your gut. Because especially when you start studying and you're choosing a teacher or a university to go to, that is absolutely the moment to listen to what you want and what feels right. Because, other people are going to tell you, oh, you have to go to this teacher, or you have to go to this festival or whatever it is. If it doesn't feel right to you and something else feels better to you or more attractive or just feels like it's the correct thing, then apply for it and just do that. There were points during my studies where I was looking for something different, and like when I left the UK to go and study in France, and that I could have easily just passed it off as, no, that's too difficult, that's too much of an upheaval, that's too much change, loads of excuses. But no, I went and did it, and I'm so happy I took the risk. So I'd say whatever feels right, go for it.
That's amazing advice. Melanie Rothman, this went by way too fast. Thank you so much for joining us on Double Reed Dish.
You're very, very welcome. I had lots of fun.
Okay, so I don't even have to tell you to go check out our social media because you're already because you're so curious about our new logo and you're gonna tell us how cute it is. And then you're going to look at all these fabulous posts for our Halloween redecorating contest and go, oh, today's the 15th. I got to go get that in, or pat yourself on the back because you already submitted it. And then you're going to come back on the 16th to start voting on all the fabulous Reed entries. Galit, who's on the next episode?
Why are you so bossy? You're like bossing around our listeners right now.
I don't know. It's 6:30 a.m. So this is what you get. You're lucky I'm awake.
So you're really going to want to tune into our next interview. It is with Mor Biron, who is a bassoonist who talks about his journey to and then from the Berlin Philharmonic. And we had just an incredible conversation with Moore, and we are pumped to share it with all of you on November 1st. Jackie, let's end this nerd parade.
Go make reads. And if you got to put a sign on your door to get it done, you put that sign on your door, baby.
And make them scary.
Oh, scary, yes. Enter the contest.